Thank you for staying with us. More than 48 hours after they took their oath of office and made appearances at their various ministries to kickstart their jobs that could last for the next 4 years, they have a huge burden on their shoulders. It is to meet up with the president's objectives and expectations from Nigerians. For some of the ministers who spoke, minimizing the sufferings of Nigerians is top on the agenda for them. Joining us in the studio to discuss this is public affairs analyst and UK-based immigration lawyer Olufemi Aino. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
As well as fellow Nigerian Institute of Management Razak Ulukoba. Good morning.
Thank you, Veronica.
And via Zoom from Abuja is public affairs commentator Mayokun Ilu. Good morning, Mayokun. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Veronica. Good morning to the house.
Good morning.
Happy to be here.
All right. Let me begin with you, Mayokun. On the day that the ministers were swearing their oath of allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the president made some statements talking about how it is that the ministers are not ministers of a particular state or region, but for the country, and how it is important for them to restore faith in governance, as well as also ensure that they are transparent in their dealings. How critical was it for him to make these statements, looking at the fact that leading up to the election, during the election and afterwards, we saw ethnic profiling as well as religious profiling? How critical was it for him to make this statement?
Well, thank you, Vero. I think it was instructive, though given the antecedents, many of them needn't be reminded. But it was good that the president mentioned it. Many of them were governors, many of them were senators, many were coming from one area of concentration or the other that was not likely federal. So now that it has been said to them, if you are a governor in a particular state, 80–90% of your functions were largely concerned with citizens of your state. Now that you are thinking at a federal level, as a federal minister, your speech, your words, your thinking, even your approach to issues should now be a bit political, a bit more sentimental towards federal issues, more accommodating of other people's opinions. So I think it was good that the president said it. I'm sure they have taken it. Somebody like Nyesom Wike, for instance, is coming from Rivers State. Now he's the Minister of FCT. So everybody now is his constituency. There are things he has done before that will serve him well because everybody seems to now believe that, okay, sanity is coming back to the streets of Abuja. I drove here yesterday on my way to the office. Ordinarily, I will meet like 3–4 traffic lights, before getting to the office. Yesterday, I saw like 10. I was like, am I in London or am I still in Nigeria? So apparently these things were meant to work, but for one reason or the other, they've not been functioning over the past few months and years. But now that the new sheriff is in town, let's hope the good days will return for good.
Right, and that's what a lot of persons have been talking about. I hope it is not an initial move to the statements made by the Minister of the FCT. But let's come back to the studio here now, and let me come to you, Femi. The matter also of accountability. In this part of the world, a lot of persons have said that we do not have that system where we hold people to account. But now that the president is talking about accountability, how crucial is it?
Yes, it is very crucial. Don't forget, the buck stops with the president as the head of the executive. He is the one. He said something which is very important. He said, maybe we can call it an analogy or so, that it's like a vehicle. All these ministers, let's come together, drive the vehicle together, the Nigerians are passengers. That's a good analogy, provided who is going to hold the steering? That's the question we need to ask. And if the president is going to hold the steering, that's fine. We are all ready to come on board and help the president to achieve his objectives. But if you are not going to be in charge and the person who is going to drive the vehicle is some wiki or these individuals. Bet me and you, I don't know about you, I won't come inside that vehicle to start with if Wiki is going to be the driver. And you've seen it. You see, it is about collective responsibility. And that is something which is very essential. That even though you are a minister of the Federal Republic, you may not even, maybe you will have a different opinion about what is going on. But that collective responsibility, you just have to toe the party line, if that is the decision of the president. And what happened on Monday? The president said, look, let us work as a team, work together. There should be this and that. But what the president failed to do is to warn these ministers is that we don't want unnecessary controversies. Because at present, Nigerians are going through a lot based on subsidy removal, based on the foreign exchange merger and what have you. Their prices of goods and services are skyrocketing. So because of that, we don't want any unnecessary controversy. We want to govern. And again, whatever is the policy, if you're a minister of the Federal Republic, what is your role? You are there to advise the president, at the same time to formulate policy. Yeah. And what is this policy? A policy is a statement of action. Any policy that you want to come up with has to be well thought out. Otherwise, if you are not careful, there will be an inconsistency in your policy, and then at the end of the day, you become ridicule. And the only thing is that the president wants to get a message across to Nigerian people that this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm going to do. Look at what happened on Monday. It's very unfortunate. Few hours after being sworn in, Jason Wike said, look, I'm ready to step on toes. I'm going to demolish this. You see, government must have a strategy. And that strategy is that front page of every newspaper, bad news is what sells newspaper. Good news doesn't sell newspaper. The moment the president advised the minister designate that, okay, this is the way to go. This is what you should do. On Tuesday, we expected that to be on the front page of most of the major newspaper. But the moment Wike said, we are going to demolish houses in Abuja,
That took what the president said.
It took over what the president said. If you look at the front page of Punch yesterday, it was really funny. Because it's in the public domain already. Look, federal government may revoke land allocation, demolish 6,000 building slums. Where did this come from? From Wike. And now, the message from the president, Tinubu, one minister against, you can see that didn't even form the headline. So, you see, we must have ministers, must not overshadow. I'm not saying they can't come up with policy, but those policy needs to be thought out within a few hours. You have not even sat down with the civil servants, find out you've never read the
handbook. They have done that behind the scenes.
It may well be, but having said that, at the same time, what do we want to get across? You said you are Mr. Project. And then at the end of the day, the first thing, once you assume office, is that I'm going to start demolition houses.
Was that wrong of him?
There is nothing wrong with that, okay? I'm not saying there is anything wrong. But at the same time, government must have a strategy whereby once you've been appointed, you don't rush to take a decision. You need to consult. You need to think through. Look, we have an Attorney General of the Federation, for instance. Now, if you start demolishing people's houses, don't you know what will be the snowball effect?
He's following the Abuja master plan. That's what he said. And so if you are building on areas that you are not meant to, those are the buildings that will be pulled down. That is what he said. I take your point,
but let me invite you to take my point.
All right.
We have a master plan.
Yes.
It's different from a minister saying, the Abuja master plan, I'm going to work strictly along the master plan. That is one thing. But the moment you start saying, we are going to demolish houses, I'm going to step on toes, we didn't appoint you as a minister to step on toes. We appoint you as a minister so that people can have the dividend of democracy. There is a difference between the two. And the moment you start on that controversial note, that is what we get across to the people. That is why that is the major headline in most of the newspaper. What would Nigerians need? There are a lot of challenges we are facing at present. How we are going to address those challenges. Those are the core objectives of the government at this present time. We've been 84 days without ministers. since the president took office on the 29th of May. Now that we have ministers in place, we want them to come up with policy that will alleviate poverty, policies that will alleviate the suffering of the people.
Razak, let me get your perspective. We've seen statements being made, bold statements being made by some of these ministers, like Yesu Miki that he mentioned. We've even seen former Governor Dave Umahi move around some places talking about addressing the roads, the networks, and all of that. And we've also seen the defense minister coming out to say that he's given security chiefs 1 year to addressing the matter of any form of insecurity in the country. Before you respond, we need to quickly go on the break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation. Stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. We're still looking at the matter of the new ministers and their portfolios and how some of them have begun to make bold statements. Recall that before we went on the break, our guest here, Olufemi Aino, had spoken on the statement made by former Governor Nyesom Wike, who is the Minister of the FCT. And I was asking our other guest, Razak Olukoba, what you make of some of the bold statements that is coming out from some of these ministers. For instance, the Minister for Defense talking about addressing all forms of insecurity within 1 year. And the statement made by Governor Nyesom Wike, former Governor Nyesom Wike, Minister of the FCT, and also the Minister of Works, looking at the state of the roads and also making some statements.
Well, thank you. We have handed over all the equipment that will make the president do his work. And that's the final stage, the swearing of the minister. He will have read a lot of reports when the president came in. And for him to begin to implement the recommendations of various agencies and ministries, he will need these ministers around him. And that's why you see all of them making those strong statements. There's no sector in the country that is not in a state of emergency. Economy, health, security, even FCT. I share my colleagues' sentiment, but by looking at what Abuja has become today, you should make a stronger statement.
Really?
Yes, because the satellite towns that are supposed to be servicing Abuja were not there. They have been shared among themselves, among the political class. And you see drivers who close 5, 6 o'clock and will travel 7 miles. Those villages were not built or developed by government, but they were lands that were apportioned to service. When you have New York, you have New Jersey. When you have Lagos, you have somewhere. When you have London, you have someone around London too. That's what Abuja was supposed to be too. But it was taken over. People have strong character, you can't change them. That's a wicked style. It's left to you to interpret what he's saying. And that's exactly what he's saying. What he said is exactly what he's saying, that the master plan is going to work according to it. And we need all sorts of people in government. People who will not talk and will walk. Fashola will not talk, but he will walk. Wike will talk, and he will also walk.
Yeah.
That's his style. But the focus will be what are they bringing to the table, all of them together, put together, and the president. And if you look at the survey done by labor productivity in Nigeria, the last time they had an accurate figure was 2008. The production rate, labor production rate is declining every year. And it gives me a concern when the army says they are giving 1 year to end insecurity, when the Minister for FCT is talking about bringing end to land grabbers in Abuja, when Minister of Works, health sector, the people who are responsible for carrying out the activities, what have you done about them? And that should be the first line of activity that the president should look into. The flight in terms of intellectual, in terms of the labor force of Nigeria that is
brain drain.
The brain drain that is going on. So maybe that's what is responsible. So the direction you must first look at is, why are the people who are supposed to move the country not working? Why is there no urge to service the nation? We must look at what is responsible for it. Is it patriotism? Is it what the country is trying to offer that is not there again? And that is what I think the president should begin to look in the direction. Me, I am always advising against picking one sector of our life and say that they're going to declare emergency on it. The way the president has picked the economy and security, they should give equal attention to everything, because everything will depend on each other. When you don't have a labor that is willing to work, economy will not grow. So every sector of our life at this moment needs urgent attention. And that is why all of them seem to be making a very, very strong statement. So for me, half of government work is actually talking, pronouncing policy statement and enforcing it. So at the stage we are now, their position, their assertive position will give to the president is that no more rhetorics. I've told as many Yoruba that I've known that the singing of Omoludu, stop it though. Don't create confusion for this man. You have sung his praise enough in the last 2 years that he's been campaigning for this. So let's begin to ask him questions. Security. So when will I be able to travel to everywhere, every part of Nigeria without looking at my back or having to ask Imam to pray for me before I go? Can I go, Imam? Having to consult pastor. Can I go to the east before I go? When will that stop? When will we stop our young men from leaving this country? When will that stop? When will the X sector? Someone just said on this program that our Panadol is better. I'm hearing that for the first time. People bring Panadol from Saudi Arabia. They say our Panadol is not good. So what is wrong with our SAIC? Why do we always think that anything in Nigeria
is not good enough?
It's not good enough. The president must also work on that. So when will we rebrand Nigeria and hand it over back to it? That is the question we should be asking the president now. And he said we should not pity him. And that is why I'm not mild with him. I won't talk to the president like someone I've known since 1992. We are going to be talking to him and asking him a question. Because people who don't have faith in him are beginning to say, Razak, we will see where this will handle. So the president should deliver. There is no reason for him not to deliver because he understands in total what Nigeria requires to succeed. The kind of political structure we put in place today that we know is very rickety. There is no president that can survive with this rickety political structure in place. He's aware, he knows that. So how do we begin to do something about that? Buhari has laid a template. How do we build on that? So all these things put together, the president has enormous work to do. And he must hit the ground running, like he has said. We want to start seeing solutions. What do you want to do about solutions? There, like I said, he personally pleaded. I don't know whether it is a correct position, that he personally pleaded for the way that was given to him. Oh, that is fine. That is good. If that has happened, that is good. That is the kind of passion we want in Nigeria. And I know that it's not a drive to go and get perks, or if that was not the reason why he has gone there. Part of the reason why I think he has gone there is because the noise about oil is too much. And the disregard for our naira. If you want respect for your naira, it's not a policy pronouncement. It's what can your economy do to the rest of the world. If your economy cannot do anything to the rest of your currency will not be respected. But if you have a strong economy, and that is the kind of education we need now from the government, that the stage we have, it's not me that will make my naira strong. It's all of us. Stop buying imported things. They say rice that we imported is flour. We are not eating flour rice. We are eating organic material. Eat local rice. I've just had a bite from nutritionists that anybody that's eating imported rice is not eating rice. And it's dangerous to our health. When do this kind of education is going to come? So he has enormous work. And that is why everything must work simultaneously. The attempt to concentrate on one sector is the beginning of failure for us. Because it's an umbilical cord.
Yeah.
Everything
is
intertwined together. So he can't face one thing. And that is why I said the equipment for him to succeed has just been handed over to him. That's the final stage, the ministers. And I've seen their faces that they know that we are in trouble with Nigeria, so we better work. They know himself. The minister knows that.
And he had to remind them.
Yes, he had to remember
in that statement. Even talking about the matter of restoring faith in the government.
We are panting. Just do the wrong thing. We are after you. And that's the position from Nigeria.
Now that he even mentioned accountability, so Nigerians have the opportunity to hold them responsible. Yes. Right. Let's quickly go on a break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation. Stay with us. All right. Thank you for staying with us. We've been looking at the matter of the ministers who just got or swore an oath of allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, how they should hit the ground running, looking at the various sectors. And we have our guests still speaking with us, public affairs analyst and UK-based immigration lawyer Olufemi Aino in the studio. We still have a fellow Nigerian Institute of Management, Razak Ulukoba, also speaking with us. And via Zoom from Abuja is a public affairs commentator, Mayokun Ilo. And I'm coming to you now, Mayokun. The first Federal Executive Council meeting will be held today. So much has been said in the studio with regards what is expected of this person's key performance indicators as well as key performance actions put forward before the president. I wonder what you expect from the conversations they will be having today.
I think the first thing that should be noted is a lot has been said about the qualifications and otherwise of the different ministers. That is in the bag now. Many of them are qualified. I would dare to say most of them, at least for what is expected constitutionally, they are overqualified. They have their antecedents. Many of them have worked in public offices before, many as commissioners, many as, I think Ali Pate is coming all the way from Harvard. So these are people with a pedigree coming to serve their fatherland. Now that they are here, there is a need for them to work in synergy, one with another. There is no ministry that is in a silo all by itself. For you to succeed, you need your co-travelers, fellow ministers. You need the stakeholders. And that kind of thinking is about the only thing that will make any minister or minister of state succeed in this dispensation. I want to believe that 80–90% of them have known one another over the years. But now that they are working under a new government, they need to reestablish contacts. They need to compare notes. They need to fashion policies together. When you are in the public sector, there's a way they do ad hoc committees. There's a way they look at interdisciplinary maybe things that they do together. So at the end of the day, you should have somebody from, like Wike is talking about Abuja Master Plan. They should have input from the Ministry of Justice, to sit on their deliberations, to give them input, to give them perspectives. Nobody should go the way alone so that you are not blindsided by the desire to perform. You should err on the side of action and also err on the side of caution, depending on what the circumstances dictate. So now that they are going to be sitting together, maybe every week, for as far as I'm concerned, even the need for the Federal Executive Council to be in-person meetings may have been exaggerated over time. They can use tools of technology to meet now. It's not compulsory. If you need to see the president 2 times in a week or 3, fine, you can go in and see that if he has the time to accommodate your needs. But if there's really nothing to report, you don't have to be meeting at every week. You can meet at your individual levels. So among other things, I've looked at what is expected. The key for leadership is for them to be proactive, is for them to be courageous, is for them to be prudent, is for them to know how to tap into talent, how to work the civil servants and use them to achieve whatever it is that has been said. Earlier in the day, I was looking at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. If only we use this on its own, in addition with our constitution as the Bible for those ministers, you'll be surprised what can be achieved in 4 years. Is it about the hunger? Is it about the poverty? Is it about water? Is it about maybe energy? Is it about other things that make life meaningful? We can't be going into foreign countries, into Western nations as it were, and seeing levels of development and see how governments are committed into issues of governance, and we come here and it's about maybe 2–3 people in public office buying a wine that runs into millions of naira to celebrate one thing or the other. The optics is not okay. So I want to see them working together, working in a synergy. They have what it takes actually between them. And even somebody that has been asked to handle the Ministry of Education, for instance, somebody can say, okay, he's a lawyer, why are you giving him education? Everybody was educated at one point or the other. So it's about that leadership coming into that stream and offering direction, ask policy, look into the past. Essentially, when the government comes into power, it's about responding to extant needs, these that come up in the course of you delivering your duty. The other part is to look into your policy statements. The president has said, okay, I'm coming into office, don't pity me, I know what I'm coming for, I've read through the materials and stuff like that. So he has an idea what he's coming to do. But things will happen that he was not in the least prepared for. One of them is that the issue of foreign reserves. You know, you are thinking coming into office that maybe Nigeria has $34 billion in external reserves, only for you 1 year on the seat, maybe 1 month on the seat, and they're telling you we have barely $5 billion in external reserves. It's something that calls for immediate response. Things have to be thought out. You know, heads have to, you know, come together and say, okay, what are we going to do about this? You know, if care is not taken, it can derail your plan for the next 4 years. So you have to think, you know, it's only thinkers that seem to get all these things right. If you don't have the knowledge base, as at that particular point in time, get the people that do. We have professors of this, professors of that in this country. We have people who are in the labor unions, who have had one experience or the other. You must have an open mind to bring people to the table, make them compromise, let them give ideas, and move the nation forward. At the end of the day, Nigeria win. That's all I can say about that.
Right. Let's come back to the studio to you now, Femi. Still talking about this meeting that they'll be having. Yes, the Federal Executive Council meeting that will be holding today. He has mentioned a whole lot with regards to what he expects will be put forward. But for you, what are critical issues you feel that they should look at to hit the ground running?
Yes, thank you. Because number one, the Federal Executive Council meeting, it has always been a transactional meeting. At the end of the Federal Executive meeting, you see a minister who will come out and said, oh, we are awarding contracts for this road from this place to this place in the sum of so million. Then we are terminating this contract for this, about this, and that. So it has always been transactional issues. But the first meeting here is to form the strategy as to how you are going to deliver the dividends of democracy to people. And some of the core issues are this. Number one, in terms of education, whoever is the Minister of Education, your role is to champion education. What are we going to do about ASUU strike? How are we going to avoid that situation? The APC government promised that as soon as we get to power, we are going to start, we will give student loan. Now, that is a very, very serious issue because number one, and they said they will start in September. That's when they will start disbursing the loan. Now, how are you going to make that to be very effective? And again, is it the same Ministry of Education that will disburse this loan? If the students don't pay the loan, how are you going to recover?
There's a document in place already to addressing all of this.
Yes, but the issue is that you see, this is the irony of the whole thing. You put the horse before the cart. First of all, before you start giving students loan, let us tackle unemployment first. Because if these students come out of university and they don't get a job, how are they going to pay the loan back? That is another thing we need to think about. And also, there is one important point, is that I took student loan when I was in university in London. But we have a student loan company that disbursed this loan. And the student loan company have the legal power to take legal action to recover the loan. Now, these are the things we need to put in place. And now we have this issue. You say some of them are making bold statements. You see, some of the rhetorics, we have to be very careful. When you say you are giving people 1 year to end insurgency. Now, the question is this. You need to, first of all, do we even know the state of the military hardware which we have in the country? That's one. Do we need to think about whether we need to retrain some of these soldiers? And those who have been trained, is there any ongoing personal development training? We just lost about 36 soldiers in Niger State recently. Now, those are things we need to sit down before we start coming up with a policy statement that you are giving 1 year. If you say you are giving 1 year and the president is asking for accountability, things need to be wet. You need to think things through. Sit down, find out, look, okay, we can do it in 1 year. Don't forget this 1 year issue. Some people have promised that in the past. And since And there's another very significant thing which the Federal Executive Council needs to look at. The rate of inflation now is between 24 to 25%. And since President Asiwaju took office, about 700 Nigerians have lost their life in tragic circumstances, either due to armed gangs, the bandits, the Fulani herdsmen, and what have you. And these farmers, we are talking about food production, sufficiency in food production. Some years ago, there was an Operation Feed the Nation in this country, where everybody, every school, you know, you do it with all sorts of excitement. Now, the farmers cannot even go to the farm because of being kidnapped and being attacked here and there. So, you know, this Federal Executive Council, those are the germane issue. Let's forget about the contracts that we are going to award this, we are going to award that. That will come later. But now, the pressing issues is that Nigerians want food on the table. They've been going through bread and water month by month. Enough of that. We need a government that will promise and deliver. And if you come into government, it is very important. My own training years ago, clients will come and say, we are suing for medical negligence. Even if you know in your heart of hearts they are going to get 10 million. You better tell them we will get 6 because you promise little and you deliver big. Otherwise, if you promise too big and you deliver little, then there will be problem. So these are the issues. When they sit down today, they need to look at it. And also, ministers, you see, there is something which is very important. And I listened to my brother when he said, you see, that joint thinking must be there. Otherwise, this minister is saying this minister is saying, and some of the functions of this minister overlap with each other.
Right.
So all of them need to work together, and these are the strategy we want the meeting to address. Enough of all this transactional meeting that the road from Calabar to for 10 million, we have terminated it. That is what normally come out at the end of the Federal Executive meeting. And also, there are so many issues the president is contending with now. Yes. He has disbursed 5 million. That is generating controversy. And I must say this, I know some people will take objection. Nigeria is not a welfare state. You understand? Whatever the government is doing, giving palliative and what have you, is just because of the constitutional provision that the welfare of the people and the security should be the paramount. This is not a United Kingdom, whereby if you don't get a job, you get job seeker allowance. If you're a single mother and you are not earning enough, they give you family credit. This country is not designed that way. It is a country whereby you all need to, you need to struggle to survive. That has been, because our forefathers, what they believed was that we have enough resources that we go around and cater for everybody. It was when some people started stealing all those resources that we are in this mess. And so this is a good opportunity. This first meeting is for them to sit down, have a very serious roundtable discussion, and tell people that we don't want any unnecessary controversies. We want people to work as a team so that they can deliver the dividends of democracy to Nigeria.
Right. Talking about the palliatives, so 5 billion was actually disbursed to the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. But I'm wondering your perspective on also this matter of the meeting, what you hope to hear them talk to, speaking to issues that are crucial to Nigerians. You have said that everything right now is critical to be addressed, and the president had to hit the ground running across the board. But there are some persons who say that there are still some critical issues and some critical sectors that will form the basis for every other thing to ride on.
Well, if someone is sick and he thinks food is not important and they start taking medication, that's a problem. And that is why other subsectors are actually the one that will make that sector strong. That's why everything is important. The best way to synergize in a situation like this, as a chartered public administrator, what we have understudied when you come out of this kind of crisis is to look at how you stand. We have a statistics department, our database.
Yes.
Must rule out how each sector stands. And that's where you are going to take off from. That the military, this is the weakness, this is the area of strength. The police, this is the weakness, this is the area of strength. Our economy has suffered certain depression in the last 10 years. But this is the way we can go if we want to survive. We go to health sector, the experience of COVID-19. So we do that, and that's what this meeting today should be talking about. It's not to first bring proposal on board. What are you proposing when you don't know your
you don't have
state?
data?
So the first meeting today is to first analyze how we stand. What is our area of strength? Then, germane issues that is confronting us, which are two. The Niger, the removal of subsidy. Having looked at how we stand, we then take a decision on it. On subsidy, what other things can we do? Because the window period for me is 2 years. To begin to see that green light we all hope for in terms of improving the economy, improving security. Gestation period is 2 years in Nigeria. And I can subject that to debate with anybody. Then, the Niger issue has become a major. EU has suspended
Niger,
the Niger. And, you know, Nigeria seems to be playing the frontline role in all of this. In the analysis of Chris Ban, which I keep referring to as a political scientist, he spoke extensively about the roles of all the continents. There's no role for Africa, except to come and take resources for us and become the strongest nation militarily in the world with our resources in Africa. To take resources from Africa, become the strongest economy in the world with our resources. So, and for us to come out of it as a continent, the role of Nigeria is very central. Certain people will not be happy with you for doing that. You are the captain of ECOMOG. That is the penalty we are facing today. People who sell guns and bullets are not happy with us. So you don't want Liberia to fight war. So why do we? So they gave us our own Boko Haram or whatever, whether it's because of gold, but I still want to debate with it. It's not part of the reason, it was because of what you are. We prevented people who sell gun not to sell gun in Africa again by the role we play. So this is what today is meant for. Our assessment as a nation, how do we stand? Then, having done that, the internal assessment of what we can do, our foreign policy is very important.
Right.
We cannot survive in isolation. What is our foreign policy? Do we drop diplomacy? Because our own diplomacy in Nigeria is a strange one. The president, former president, has done a good job in terms of our foreign policy. All the things Buhari has done in terms of generosity to Niger Republic, to other countries of the world, is a foreign policy that we are supposed to make profit from. When you go to the rest of any part of, you leave Nigeria to go, the role of embassy is not to come and remove you when there's a trouble. Our young people don't know that. Our foreign mission is to look at what the country can gain economically from the accommodating country. For instance, maybe you are in US, maybe you are in Sudan, maybe we have an embassy all over the world. So our foreign policy is also very important. We have to look at it more and we must adopt a pattern how we are going to relate with fellow Africans. We don't want a situation where we will go to South Africa and will not be celebrated with the role we have played in the freedom of South Africa, during apartheid. We don't want to be treated that way again. We don't want to be treated the way we are treated in London today. The weakness at which we push our argument anywhere we get to the world, we must reverse it. You must let America know that we are investing in your country, we are building your economy too. You are the first economy in the world, we are building your economy. So we must also review our foreign policy. So that should be the focus of it, in my own estimation. And it's a universal standard. That the day is not to start talking about free education. The day is not to talk about our buy stealing guns. So no. Look at what you have in your pocket first. Look at so all these things that the president has been doing all this while is to be able to have all these workmen around him.
Yeah.
And the palette, that's what he's been trying to say. Just to create time for him to be able to have all his men around him. Now he have all his men around him. So let's supervise them. The way to supervise them is to create an agenda for them. So we urge the president this morning. Today is to ascertain your capacity as a nation. Are you truly the giant of Africa? So that we know whether we're going to change that nomenclature. That we are a giant of Africa today, but not now. Tomorrow will become the kind of Africa. Let's resolve our issues. So when you look at all these issues, there will be a clear perspective so that all this confusion about this minister says this, this one says that will not be there again. They will work in synergy. And like I used to say, the president is eminently qualified. And that's the greatest fear that I have. that if you have someone that is qualified at the Home Affairs, the greatest fight is for him not to fail. Because who are you going to employ again? If a professor has failed to impact knowledge in students, is he a training lecturer you are going to take him to come and lecture again? So the greatest fight I have at the moment is for him not to fail. He is eminently qualified. There are things we have done together with him in this country that we know that for him to become the president is Eldorado for us. So we have to create a barricade around him not to fail.
Right.
For people who think that if he fails, they are going to be happy because I'm a member of opposition. We all fail if he fails. We should know that too. And what should be in your mind, why you don't prefer Shiwaju, is it not because for the country to work? So if the country works, what's the enmity again?
Right.
So all hands now at the moment must be on the table
deck
for him to succeed.
Right. Let me come to you now, Mayakun. You mentioned something critical earlier that is also of concern to some Nigerians, talking about how these ministers can work with the civil service. Because there are those who may have intentions to deliver, but how they work with the civil service or how the civil service cooperates with them is also very critical to deliver on their mandate as it is. So talk to us from that perspective, how these ministers can handle working with the civil service. Michael, can you hear me? All right, let's bring that question. Let me bring it to you now.
Well, that's very important. And Mr. Razak said something which is very important, that look, at this time, the issue in Niger, since they removed subsidy, I think they've managed to save about 2 trillion, according to the president. The question remains that money, if we are going to go to war in Niger now, where is the Minister for Finance going to get the money from? And these 2 trillion, which they've managed to save through fuel subsidy removal, is it not the case that some years ago in this country there was an award called Udoji Award, whereby teachers, civil servants, all of them were paid that money managed to flow into the marketplace because people were spending, you see your teachers in those days buying machine, because this is the benefit from the oil. And now, are we going to use that money? I'm not saying so. Diplomacy is what we should embrace, and I agree with that. Yeah. But your question of that
working with the civil service,
working with that is very important, because you see these civil servants they have their own ways. Some of them have this bureaucratic way of doing things, and now some of them are even old school that they cannot even embrace modern day technology. And then, so these are the things you need to look at. And if you are going to be a minister, in order to work with them, you better listen more and you consult more and you carry them along. Because if you are not careful, they are going to frustrate whatever you are going to do. And if care is not taken, disaster will be all over the place. So if you are the minister, you need to listen more and you need to use what is called the carrot and stick leadership approach. It is very important they do that. Otherwise, we may have issues.
Okay, Mayakun is back. Let me throw the question back to him now. Mayakun, earlier you mentioned the matter of how to work with the civil service. We know how critical they are to the success of any minister's delivery on their portfolios as it is. Now, how would you expect, ministers to work with these persons talking about the civil service? From the statements the former governor Nyesom Wike made on yesterday, there are those who have been saying that he is setting the ground for these people not to work or not to cooperate with him. And I am wondering how you expect these ministers to really ensure that they get the buy-in of these civil servants to their vision, and so they can deliver on the dividends of democracy to Nigerians.
Thank you, Vero. I think what needs to be done is for the various ministers to employ emotional intelligence when dealing with the civil servants. Civil service is like the neck of every administration. You can't work without them. and they know where the bodies are buried, so to say. They know where the banana peels are. So you have to be extremely careful dealing with them. They have their interests, they have their leanings. You need to just understand it and know how to navigate the ministries with them. They can be great allies if you bring yourself as somebody who is seeking knowledge, as somebody who is not trying to impose a new order. If you read the 48 Laws of Power, it says preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. So if Wike is talking tough now, he will have a good reception. Why? Because there was an El Rufai before him. You know, when El Rufai was in that ministry, he was very tough. He was all around talking about master plan. People were angry, but many years down the line, people have now seen that, okay, El Rufai was a good person. You know, I'm not talking about personal characteristics now. I'm talking about his ability to deliver on the mandate that was given to him. And in people see another El Rufai in the making. And for those who have lived in Abuja and have seen how Abuja has gone to the gutters over the years and how things are not actually as they should be, they kind of appreciate Wike. You know, they feel that, okay, now things need to work. And somebody who can make it work is here. Forget the fact that he talks 19 to a dozen. It's just in his nature, but more importantly, he's somebody that walks the talk. So you need synergy with other ministries. I can look at 1, 2, 3 ministries, you know, across like health, for instance. You need to work with the humanitarian affairs. You need to work with those in charge of labor and employment. You have to talk with those people who are looking at even security on his own for workers. So that is your ministry. The blue and marine too have to look at what is happening in the world out there, how people are changing direction, how moving to green economies and the rest of it. So work with others, work with the civil service, ask them where things are going and you'll be okay.
All right, Razak, your final word in 30 seconds.
Well, I wish Mr. President and all the ministers well. I want to say that Nigerians have high expectations of them. All the knowledge they have acquired for them to become the minister, and the experiences must come to play.
Absolutely.
The light at the end of the tunnel, I know it's not an optical illusion, it's hope. We have hope in them.
All right.